Trump as he's announcing now that he plans to double tariffs on steel imports from 25% to now 50% effective from June 4th to secure the steel industry. The announcement comes during a speech at a U.S. steel plant in Pennsylvania. Right after that, his Truth Social account stated that the tariff on aluminum will also be doubled. Let's hear out what exactly the U.S. president announced.
We are going to be imposing a 25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America, which will even further secure the steel industry in the United States. Nobody's going to get around that. So we're bringing it up from 25%. We're doubling it to 50%, and that's a loophole. And
let's try and understand the repercussions for both the global steel industry as well as aluminum and what really implies for India. We've got Aditya Welekar, Senior Research Analyst, Metals and Power from Axis Securities, joining in on the show right now. Aditya, hi. Good to have you on ET Now today. Aditya, tariff increased from 10% to 25% just in Feb this year, and now it seems like it's going to head to 50%. Tell me, what does this mean for global demand-supply equation for both steel and aluminum, according to you?
Yeah, good morning. So once again, this increase in tariff, it raises questions on the supply chain. So it's basically a supply chain disruptive process. So whatever China is exporting, so its exports in the first 4 months of this calendar year has increased by 8% to 38 million tons of steel, which is a significant amount of steel which is coming out of China. So already there is a lot of concerns of the kind of exports which are coming out of China because its domestic steel production is not picking up well. And so if to answer the question directly, so U.S. is not the primary destination of Chinese steel exports, and U.S. The percentage of Chinese steel exports is minimum to U.S., but the steel containing material exports to U.S. is significant from China. So overall, this once again creates a risk that the China will look after some other regions because U.S. is almost now locked for steel imports. So China will look for other regions to flood their market, and that will eventually put pressure on global steel prices. And here domestically, we are having a safeguard duty which kind of protects our steel imports. And we have seen that steel imports have stood down for India. But at the same time, if we can see on an import parity basis, the steel prices coming from China are almost at a similar level to our domestic steel prices, or even a few percentage point below to our domestic steel prices. And with this increase in tariff, it will further put pressure because the Chinese will increase their competitiveness and will further lower their offers to exports market. So it only increases our competitiveness and our risk for domestic steel prices. Our steel mills will not be able to hike steel mills further from the supported level. So that is the view on steel.
Right. But tell me, what happens to prices then, Aditya? What could be the impact globally, both on steel and aluminum?
Yeah, so prices, as I said, means on an import parity basis, the steel prices are trading at a 4%, Indian steel prices are trading at a 4% discount to Chinese steel prices. So as I said, the steel mills will find it difficult to hike the prices from this current level of 52,000 rupees per ton for HRC. In US, the steel prices will increase. Already in the month of March, when they announced first tariff of 25%, the steel prices locally in the US, they started to increase, and those prices are trading at a premium to rest of the world prices. And China has kept its export prices quite competitive. So their steel mills are operating at a very low margin. So that is with respect to prices. For aluminium, the dynamics is slightly different. What has happened when they announced the tariffs on aluminium, the Midwest premium, which is a premium over London Metal Exchange benchmark index, that has increased substantially. So that has led to some arbitrage opening between US and ex-US market, which led to higher exports from China and rest of the world to US. But now with this announcement of from 25 to 50% again, that tariff will come into effect just from 4th of June. So the window for arbitrage is not significant, and also the Midwest premiums are at quite high level. So the producers will not have that much amount of leeway to export the metal to US because the window is short. Also, the premiums are at a high level. So overall, all these moves of domestic tariffs from US, these are disruptive, and this only put pressure on both aluminium and steel prices.
So since India is not a major exporter of steel or aluminum to the US, I'm guessing there is going to be no major impact of this on Indian listed companies. But what happens to, say, a Novelis, Hindalco's US-based subsidiary?
Yeah, so for Novelis, the impact is already slightly negative. In the conference call, they have highlighted that the impact will be $400 million because of these tariffs per quarter. And with this increase in the tariffs further from 25 to 50%, because last time they have got some exemptions from the Canadian imports into US, but this time they are still working on that, and that process and this news flow is continuously evolving, but slightly negative for Hindalco. For steel names, the impact is not very direct, but sentimentally it's negative because, as I said, means our steel prices are supported by the safeguard duty, but the hike which the steel prices, because of this monsoon season and because of this increase in tariffs, the mills will not be able to hike the steel prices further. So that is the view which we can take. So sentimentally, it's not a very positive news. Although direct impact on steel players will not be there. For Hindalco, it's slightly negative. And for player like Welspun Corp, which has domestic steel facilities in the US, and they cater to the oil and gas industry for the steel tubes, that will be positive. So we have to have a very specific approach, stock-wise approach, and we have to trade accordingly.
And the other aspect, Aditya, also about, dumping from several countries into India, which has already been a concern for India, right? Could supply into India intensify by any chance because of higher tariffs on import to US?
Eventually, it should, because now US being locked out for rest of the world. So the other players like for US, Canada, and Mexico, these are the major countries which supply steel and aluminum to these countries, to US. So eventually that steel has to find some other way. And ultimately, we have seen a lot of trade restrictions and protectionist measures. Apart from US also, we have seen protectionist measures coming from South Korea and Vietnam also for Chinese steel. And there are import quotas in Europe also. So all these protectionist measures is kind of making the high export coming out of China unsustainable. And that is a key figure which we will have to watch out. And Chinese steel mills, they are offering a very competitive export price to sustain their steel exports. And if they further decrease it, that's not good news for global steel prices. So that is the key trigger will be the exports figure coming out of China in the month of May and June that we have to see, and whether they cut their domestic steel production capacity. So that will be the key positive for the sector. If they announce some cuts and implement those cuts, then there will be some relief for the commodities complex.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Good speaking with you and, getting an analysis in depth into how this would really sort of have repercussions for both the global steel and aluminum majors and, of course, the impact on India companies as well. But let's move on.